Got some good news for you. If you stick around to the end of our session, you're going to have a chance or a giveaway from our guest, Mountain Equipment Company. Your cameras and mics are off for the session, but we want to hear your comments and questions. On your screen is a question mark button or a question box. Use it to post anything you want to tell us or ask a question, and we'll either answer online or in the QA part of our presentation. To get us started, please welcome the heart of AdventureSmart in BC, Executive Director, Sandra Riches.
Thank you, Scott. That was great. You know, every time I listen to that Stoke video, and I've listened to it a lot, it still makes me tap my toes and nod my head. So it's kind of nice to be able to share that with you. So before I kick off and welcome everybody and introduce our guest, I should say, I just wanted to say thanks for joining us tonight. We've got a great group of people here supporting your time with us this evening. So thanks for joining us. We had over 400 people register for this session. We're excited to have you all here, and we'd love to see and hear where you're sitting. Please put in the questions there, where are you tonight? Where are you in the province, in the country? And then we'll learn a little bit more about you. I'm the Executive Director for the BC AdventureSmart program, and I'm grateful to be joining you tonight from the Lillooet territory here in Whistler. I've been here for a little bit this summer and enjoying lots of mountain biking and working at the same time. I have a very, very short slide deck to show you. It has some information for you, some of our messaging, and some information about what's going to happen tonight. We are so grateful to have MEC with us, all about packing for an overnight hiking trip. Big or small, we're going to get the foundation set for us this evening with some of our messaging as well, and some great support here from Max this evening. We have Max all the way from Kelowna, where it's pretty toasty hot there too, just as it is here on the south coast and up the corridor. Max works at the Kelowna store. Lucky, it's a beautiful shop, by the way. I've been there a few times. He's also an industrial designer and mechanical engineering student from Mexico City with a passion for the outdoors. You're in a great spot to play out there for sure, Max, in the interior. Your main activities, or Max's main activities, are climbing, trail running, and backpacking. Also enjoying other adventures that you can explore and learn more about the province. Looks like Max is into climbing there as well, so that's pretty cool. If any of you are from, let's say, 25 plus years ago, this pack will ring a bell for you. When I first saw it, it took me back to when I first moved here to BC over 30 years ago. The clutter sack backpack, definitely old school. I've promoted it a little bit to say that this is what you could win tonight. If you pay close attention to Max's presentation, I will come up with a skill testing question at the end of the presentation where you can quickly enter the answer into the question and answer field. And the first one that gives the right answer, Scott will read out and we'll be in touch, and this pack is yours. It's pretty cool. It's old school. It's not available in the stores yet, but I hear from MEC and the reps there that coming mid-August here, it will be available for sale. It's worth about $90. It's definitely retro. It's pretty exciting. MEC has also offered you, for a short period between today and the 31st, 10% off almost everything at MEC online. But you'll get a follow-up email from us with the recording of tonight's session, and all of this information will be included in there too. But that was a nice little extra piece that MEC offered this afternoon as we were wrapping up our coordination and organization of this evening. If you follow us anywhere on social or have been to any of our outdoor sessions face-to-face or joined us for a webinar, you know that the 3 T's are really the trifecta of our outdoor safety message. We want you to trip plan for every adventure, overnight or just a few hours. Leave that information with a trusted emergency contact. We have a great app for that. It's very easy to use. Have the proper training skills and certifications and mentorship to do the activity you're choosing to do, and take those essentials with you, which Max is going to elaborate on tonight, specifically for an overnighter. So the 3 T's is easy to follow, and Scott can toss a link to our 3 T's information into the chat tonight for you to learn a little bit more and have access to that. So trip planning, training, and taking the essentials, and you're definitely on the right path before you even hit the trail. Here is your opportunity also. FatMap reached out to us today again. They've been great supporters of our webinars too. And if you take your phone, scan over the QR, which we all know how to do now pretty well. I will also include this in your follow-up email. And this will give you a 1 month free trial for FatMap. They really love what we do. They want to support enthusiasts and give you a chance to see what their product offers. So a few great things for you tonight just for sitting and joining us for 45 minutes. There's also the access to our trip plan app. It's free of charge. It allows you to let someone know where you're going for any adventure before you head out there. Simple, simple. I want you to enjoy the session. Max, the floor is yours. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let's see what it takes to pack for an overnight hiking trip. And I'll ask that skill testing question to offer up that prize as we get near the end of our session. Thank you, and enjoy the session with Max.
All right, thank you, Sandra. This is Max from the Kelowna store, and I'm going to try to go very fast over the most essential things that you need for your overnight backpacking trip. I have here all my gear arranged in this table, and I will attempt to pack it in the 25 minutes I have in this presentation. And while I do that, I'm going to talk about the gear and what you should look for depending on where you're going and what conditions you're expecting for your trip. So first off, what you're going to need to put all your stuff in is a pack. So I have chosen Zulu 65 for this presentation. It's a pack from Gregory. And the reason I chose the 65 is because I find myself that I probably will not have a budget to have one pack for a specific occasion, whether that be an overnighter or if I'm going for more days. Eventually it's ideal to have a pack for the size of each occasion. But if you don't have that possibility, this is where I would start. It's a good size. You can fit all your essential gear in, depending on your activity. For example, I know that people like photography a lot, so they might pop in a camera or something in there that they would like. So first off, the things that I like the most about the pack is that you have access from the bottom, which is really nice. Usually meant for sleeping systems, which we'll talk about later on today. You get the main access up top, and you get full access all the way. Oh man. So you can have a good look at all the gear you have, and it's just a little bit easier to organize everything in there. So that being said, I will just put this aside and we'll fill it up as we go with the gear that you need for your backpacking trip. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is your sleeping system. So your sleeping system consists of mainly your sleeping bag and your sleeping pad. For this occasion, I have chosen the Talon -10 degrees. So that's the rating on the sleeping bag. And a good thing to know about sleeping bags and the ratings is that the -10 doesn't mean that you're going to be comfy in a night that is -10 degrees outside. So that is the limit temperature on the sleeping bag. That means that you're going to survive through the night in your sleeping bag, but it's not necessarily going to be the comfiest night you'll ever have. So sleeping bags have a range of comfort depending on the down they're filled with. This specific bag, I think the range of comfort is from -1 degrees to 10 or something around that. And that temperature range is gonna depend on the down that is filling the sleeping bag, which takes me to the next specification on sleeping bags, which is the down. Sleeping bags that are down, that are recommended for backpacking because they're more packable, will have a fill power rating, which means that they refer to the quality and the quantity of down that is in the bag. The higher the fill power, the more packable in a general rule the sleeping bag will be. So this one is 850 plus fill power, which is pretty decent. The most I have seen in the store here is 1100 fill power, and it is impressive to see how small those guys pack. So I am gonna put this sleeping bag in this compression sack, which I definitely recommend to take. If you have a down sleeping bag, which I definitely recommend for a backpacking trip, the best idea is to get a waterproof compression sack, and it should be specified what capacity the compression sack should be for your sleeping bag when you buy it. Or you can just ask whoever's selling you the sleeping bag. MEC is a great place for that. So while I stuff this thing in the stuff sack, I believe that Sandra could throw in some more specs that I might have missed.
No, indeed. I'm going to just jump in here and mention that the more packable it is, I don't know if this is the same for you, but the more packable it is, I tend to find that the sleeping bag, I like having a little bit more loft. I like having it a little bit more fluffy and having a bit more stuff to lie on when I'm in the tent. So I like actually having it not as stuffable because I want to have that firmness.
Mm.
In a trade-off.
See, I am terrible for that. When people ask me, like, oh, am I going to have a good night's sleep on this pad or on this bag? I'm a very heavy sleeper. So I just I hit the deck and I don't think about it. So people ask me, yeah, you're probably going to be comfortable if you ask me. But then I have people come back like, oh, I had a terrible night. I'm like, oh, sorry. So it really depends with like most of the things backpacking wise, it's going to depend on you. And the way you're going to find out is testing out gear and going on trips. And then you have an opinion of the different things and you're going to find out what works for you best.
Are you gonna like, so obviously there's trade-offs when you're using your sleeping bags. You're going to be trading off potentially loft for space because you want to have less space. You're going to be potentially trading off money for something that's highly packable because it's the more packable it is, they tend to be more expensive, right?
Oh yeah.
What like what is the difference? Like if I were to look at say a negative 20 bag. If what's the cheapest I could get, and it would be a nice big lumpy bag, versus what's the most expensive I could pay on that? Just generally.
Yeah, like another thing that people look at a lot is the weight of the bag.
Yeah.
So like, there are sleeping bags out there that are really good, really expensive, and they have the same temperature rating as other sleeping bags that are maybe cheaper, and they probably pack more or have some other characteristics. And what they do, the way they achieve that is they just get better quality down and they put less down in the bag. So, and that's also the reason why they might be more expensive because their process at the manufacturing or research and development they put into the bag just allows them to do that. So, it's definitely, it gets into the nitty gritty with sleeping bags. Well, with all the gear, really, in general. But in the end, I think you have to make a decision of where you're gonna where you're gonna be going the most and what weather with sleeping bags at least. So we have now packed our sleeping bag in our stuff sack. And as I mentioned before, I like to put my sleeping bag just at the bottom of my pack. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah. And the reason why is because it creates a nice foundation at the bottom of my pack. I don't know if you can see the sketches I made here, but usually how I pack my pack is I go light at the bottom, and then right in my lumbar section, I put the heaviest stuff and then go light up top again. So I'm just gonna cram this guy in there. So it's now in there. And sleeping bag is one of those things that takes quite a bit of space in the pack. So I'm just gonna close this compartment at the bottom. That is well stuffed in there.
You know, as Max packs a few things here and Scott added some great information, Scott's tossing in some links as we go through this. So as Max talks about certain topics, don't forget to check out the chat feature because there's some great links there from MEC.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of things that we're not going to be able to go through every specific piece of gear, and those links are like a great resource to find out what is best for you specifically in your trip. So the next piece of gear is our sleeping pad, which you know, it's the other complement to our sleeping system, which can be very, very important depending on your body type and the way you sleep. I can get away with the thin sleeping pads. There's people that need the thick ones or the long ones or the wide ones because they roll around at night and they need a good night's sleep for the next day and keep going on their hike or their adventure, right? So for me, I find that this Thermarest X Lite is great. It has a very good R value for the size it has, and the R value is something comparable to the field power rating on sleeping bags, just this time for sleeping bags. The R value is the way they compare insulation in sleeping pads. So the higher the R value, the best insulation you get from your sleeping pad. This one has a 4.2, I believe. So it's pretty good. I would say it's great for most of the year, except when it gets really cold, or depending on what sleeping bag you pair it with. So I'm gonna place this right beside my sleeping bag in my pack. And I'll show you guys in a second. All right. So this is what we've got so far. We got our sleeping system kind in there. And what this does, putting this at the bottom of the pack, it creates a nice foundation so that we can start placing gear around and really start to play Tetris with it, you know, and put things where they can fit and distribute the weight evenly across the pack. And on that note, we're gonna go into the next essential, I believe is also one of the most important ones. And a lot of people think the same, I would say, is shelter.
Let me just ask one big quick question. How big is that backpack?
This is a 65 liter.
65 liter, thanks.
Yeah. All right. So for shelter, I would say this is going to be another essential that you have to sort of decide where you're going to go through with. Sorry. The most known method is a tent. There's also hammocking, or people that just like cots. So they take cots out there and then don't really have a system. I love tents. I chose for this one the Telos Tier 2. So this is a backpacking 2-person tent. And I chose this one specifically to showcase how you can take a tent and distribute the weight with your group, partner, or whoever you're camping with, or if you're doing it on your own. So this tent is designed so that you can take the fly, the tent, and the poles apart, but still have them in a little bag. So this is the fly, this is the tent, and then these are the poles. So ideally, if you're going with someone, which this is a 2-person tent, they would carry, say, the tent, and then you carry the poles and the fly, and you know that way you can distribute the weight between everyone and not have just one person carrying all the weight. So I'm gonna place this, guys. I'm gonna Tetris them in the back. Still have my nice foundation there. Take the tip.
Remind me what the name of the tent is and how much it weighs?
This is the Telos TR2, and it weighs, oh boy. This one weighs 3 pounds.
Thanks kindly.
So not terrible. And distributed across your pack and your group, I think you can make a pretty comfortable arrangement with the tent. So I'm gonna go this way, like that. And the poles are one thing that I like to place on one of the sides. I've seen people that attach them to the bottom. It works for some people. I find that it hasn't worked for me. I just like to stuff them in the side of my pack, and then that way I have like a cage that contains gear as well, if that makes sense.
To complement Max's packing there, I also just put in on the event, on the Facebook event, I've added a few things there for all the participants, a bit of a description and a graphic, Max, that will complement what you're doing there physically and literally in talking about it. It's divided the pack into 4 segments, if you will, A, B, C, D, and it's easy to see how it mirrors what you're saying. So if people want a visual outside of your demo, check that also out on the Facebook events page for tonight, because it divides it up into that weight distribution between medium, heavy, light gear and lighter gear, just to support your work there, Max. Thanks.
For sure. Yeah, thank you. All right, so now we have the tent in there. And we've gotten to the point where we have reasonably low density and high volume gear packed in there. Well, I don't know if you can see. So it's all in there, and there's a space up there where I like to place my heaviest gear, or the heaviest things I'm gonna carry, which are usually water and food and my cooking system. So I chose the 3-liter hydration pack from Gregory, just because it's really easy to fill up. It has a really nice wide opening. 3-liter is pretty good for an overnight. And then I'm also taking just a regular water bottle. So I'm gonna place that one in at this point. It would be filled up with water, of course, if I was going on a trip, but I don't want to take it out of its package because that one is not an easy one to put back on. So I'm just gonna stuff it in there. And then going along with the water theme, I'm also taking a water filter. So this is a pump water filter from MSR, and it has a, I think, 0.2 micron filter, which is good enough to filter most of the bacteria out there in the backcountry. It's important to know that water filters filter bacteria from water and not viruses. It's just something that all water filters struggle with, because viruses are so much smaller than bacteria and cannot be filtered with one of these filters. But basically how this works is you put this end of the water filter in your water source and pump, and water will come out this side, and that water will be clean and ready to drink. Before you go on your trip, it's important to know if you're gonna have any water sources out there where you're going, where they're gonna be potentially, so you can plan how much water you can drink where, and not just run out at some point. So that would be in the first T of the 3 T's.
Trip planning, yes. What's the name of that water pump again?
This is the, I always confuse the still one, and so this is a Trail Shot.
Trail Shot, okay.
The cooking system is a pocket rocket, but
Yes.
I'll fix them. So I just I try to avoid the name because I know I'm gonna say this is the trail shot.
Now, the other thing about a water purification, of course, is it will also not take out chemicals. So you really need to know whether or not there's anything above you that will get in there. It's only going to take out bacteria, not chemicals. If you've got oil coming in off the road or something like that, it's not coming out with that.
Correct. Following that trend of food and water, I'm going to go into my cooking system, which is the pocket rocket, as I just mentioned. This is the stove, pretty compact, which is what I love about it. So you fold it up like this, and this one is fueled by just your regular isobutane gas canister. I would say that this is enough for an overnighter, but I also like to use, if I'm making a bonfire, I like to use that heat as well to cook. So it depends on how much you're planning to use. I find that this is enough for me, but I'm also, when I'm in the backcountry, you know, sometimes you're just enjoying the moment, forget to prep a meal, you keep going through the day. I do not recommend that. Definitely get your 3 meals a day. But yeah, just consider how your body works when you're planning your food and your water on your food. So I'm gonna place that in its little pocket. Oh man, now I feel like I have to go. I have to go on a trip now. And this is also the pocket rocket cooking system. It's basically one plate, one pot, and the handle. This is considered a 2-person cooking system, even though it only has one plate, because you can use a pot as well. And it is designed so you can put all the things inside and make it really packable. And you get the bag. Oh man. Do you ever have that feeling that whenever someone's watching, you do things so much more slower?
No pressure,
Sarcastic,
Matt. No pressure.
It's all
No.
good. Yeah, so another thing to take into account when you're packing for the backcountry is not only how you distribute the weight vertically on your back, but also horizontally. So you don't want all your heavy things to the right, or your heavy things to the left, because that's also going to affect in the long run how your steps are weighted along in the trail. So I'm going to take my cooking system, put it over to the left, because I have the poles on this side. So I have to start to balance out that weight a little bit. So I place that one over there. And then personally, there's few things in this world that I enjoy more than a good cup of coffee in the backcountry. So I do take my French press. Some people don't like to take the extra weight, so they just take tea, boil it, and you can use a cooking system for that. I do like to take my French press, so I included it in this presentation because I know there's a lot of coffee lovers out there. So I'm gonna put that opposing my cooking system as well. And now I have just the perfect spot for my isobutane, right in the middle. All right, so now that my cooking system's in there, I'm gonna show you how it looks so far. If you guys can see it all, maybe.
Yep. Nice.
All right. All right, so now that my heaviest stuff is in the pack, I will go with my kind of heavy stuff, which for me is the food. I have picked out a couple of backpacking dehydrated food that we have here in that. I got Irish Shepherd's Pie from Nomad Nutrition. And these are meals for 2 persons. When it comes to food, I always tell people that what I recommend they do is get one that they think they're gonna like, and then have it in their normal day.
Yay!
Prep a meal, eat it, do some activity, track your levels of energy, and then see if your body reacts well to that food. And if it does, then you can come back and buy more of that. Because it is not the best idea to just get the food, be out there on the trail, and then you prep it, you eat it, and then you're halfway through the hike, and they're like, you know, man, I don't feel so great. You know, either if it's like lacking energy or other trouble that may arise from that. You don't want to have it. So try your food before you go on the trail. For
Yep.
no matter, I would take, depending on how many people I'm going with, 2 or 3 of the backpackers' food, and depending on the time I leave as well. And then I would take some energy bars. Some people like to take energy gels. I'm not a big fan just because of the taste, but some people like it depending on the hike and how strenuous it is. So I put that right on top of my cooking system.
The other thing I'll point out is that they will say 2 servings. Don't believe it. You need to test it. You need to know how many calories you need. I always have about 2.5 servings when I sit down for a meal. My wife, who's about 5'2", I'm 6'2", she has between 1.5 and 2 servings per meal.
Yeah. Definitely figure out how much you're gonna eat of these stuff before you say like, oh yeah, I have 2, it's fine, it's for 4 people. And then you're hungry in the backcountry. All right, and then I did bring the coffee, but I usually put that inside my French press. So I'm not gonna put this in because in theory it's in there. And the space I have left here, most of it I will not use for an overnighter, but what I will put in here will be if I am taking extra layers of clothing that we're gonna go into that. If we have, I think we're doing well on time. How are we doing on time?
We're good. We're at 6:36, and I know that if some people have questions, we'll still get those in at the end, but I think we're trucking along, Max. Nice.
All right, sweet, great. So in that space, I would put the layers that I want to take with me. And for this time of year, depending on where you're going, I only brought 3 layers that I think are important. So I got a base layer, a merino wool base layer that has a wide range of comfort for activity, and it is also, because it's a natural thread, it's good at repelling odors, which is always nice when you don't have access to a shower. And I roll it a certain way, but that would take some time. So I will not do it right now. Then I have a mid layer, a very thin mid layer because of the season. Depending on where you're going, it might be cold. I know there's still some snow up in Garibaldi, I think. So if I was concerned about it being too cold at some point, I would take my mid layer, and I would always, no matter where you're going, consider taking a outer shell that is waterproof, because you never know. Like I've been in situations where I know I would love to have a very good rain jacket, and I did it. So ever since, I just take it everywhere. And the good thing about all the clothing and why I leave it at the end in my pack is because it's also very compressible. You can just like stuff it in and it will go where it can go. Usually fold it a bit nicer, but for time's sake, I'm just gonna go ahead and put it in there. And that way, if I need it, if it starts just pouring down on me, take down my pack, open it up, and it's the first thing in there.
Sometimes it's also helpful, not even for rain, but sometimes you get just completely surrounded by bugs, and having something that you can bring that's completely covers you is your best protection when that muskol isn't going to work for you.
For sure. Bugs is a big one.
Yeah, you're describing the systems really well, Max, that we talk a lot about the 3 layering system, right? We've got that base layer that's really snug to us and it wicks away the moisture from us when we perspire, but it dries quickly. Cotton doesn't ever. And then that thermal or mid, and then the outer for protection. It's a great system for temperature regulation.
Exactly. Yeah, and then that way you have a wide range of activity with comfort. All right, so now that we have most of the pack, I would also take in my apparel recommendations, I also take a extra pair of underwear and socks. The socks are essential if you get wet and you weren't expecting to get wet. Once you start to dry out, changing your socks might be the difference between having really bad blisters and just being able to enjoy the rest of the trail. So you should take that and try to always have a dry pair out of the 2. But I didn't bring those in to put in the pack today. So I'm just gonna go ahead and close my pack now that I have finished with most of my gear in there. Oh,
You may be, I may be jumping the gun, but I was wondering, where are you going to hide your first aid kit?
we have that coming.
Okay, cool.
That's gonna go in, and I love the way they refer to this. They call it the brain of the pack. It just, I don't know, it makes me laugh. It's the brain.
Well, it's funny you say that, Max, because we talk a lot about what should always go in there, and there's all these tangibles that you've just shared with us and showed and packed really well. But we also need to have that sound judgment. So we do need to we do need to have our brains with us to make these decisions during, pre, and post adventure, right?
Yeah, that's correct. It's always nice to debrief on what you did well and what you can do better next time, depending on your adventure for sure. So where I like to put my first aid kit, it's on the brain of the pack. Whoa. Which is right at the top. With the one I picked today, you would be fine without a dry set because it's the ultralight medical kit number 7. So this one is watertight, which is really nice. But I usually take a dry sack with me, what's sort of like this one. And I put things in there that I just, for whatever reason, I don't want them to get wet. So I take my matches, or if I'm taking a lighter, my lighter. I usually take both. I take my navigation system. Today I just brought my map and my compass. You can get fancy with it for sure. You can, get one of those really nice GPS systems that are meant for the backcountry, and you can like navigate a bit easier through the backcountry. All the trips I have gone to, I've gone with people that have done it before, so I find that it has been more than enough for me. But if you're going on a trip that is more adventurous, maybe you might want to look into one of the fancier systems that you can get out there for navigation. So I usually toss all that in my dry set. And on that same note, this pack does come with a rain cover in the other side of the crate. So if it starts raining, I can just put that out, put it over my pack, and keep going. But if your pack doesn't have one, I definitely would recommend getting a rain cover for your pack. Looks kind of like this. And I also put that in the brain. And this one is a silicone one. I just find they're a bit nicer and a bit more packable than other plastic covers that are out there. A great thing to have with you.
As you put that first aid kit in the brain, Max, I'll just share a couple stats. So we know through data-driven insights, through all of the search and rescue incidents that are entered into our system here in BC, which every year there's about 1,900 search and rescue calls that happen in British Columbia. 78 search and rescue groups respond to those calls. About 3,000 search and rescue volunteers. Scott is one of those unpaid professionals. But in that information that they enter for all those SAR incidents, we know the top 3 reasons for search and rescue, and the first one is injury. So as you're putting that first aid kit into the brain of the pack, Max, it's making me think that it's easily accessible, it's quickly accessed, and that makes it easier to address any first aid and risk manage. So just a little, you know, some stats there for you. The first one is injury, the second one is getting lost and disoriented, and the third one is exceeding abilities. But the placement of your first aid kit makes it easier to address that first aid issue.
Yeah, definitely. That's the reason why. And when I have had to use it, which thankfully hasn't been a lot, I can always tell people where it is, and they'll just find it really quick. It's just at the top of my pack, because people don't know how I pack my pack, right? So I want them to be able to identify quickly where the important or the emergency stuff is, which is easy to tell people. It's just at the top, the first tag at the top.
Yeah, great points. Max, we're at 6:45, just an info, just an update, but I see we have a bunch of questions, but just keeping you on track and just letting you know the time.
Sweet. So in that case, I'm just gonna finish real quick. I'm gonna do the last essential that I think you definitely need out there, which is your illumination system, which in my case, I just take my headlamp. This one is a Petzl Actic Core. And the reason I take this one specifically is because it's a hybrid between a rechargeable ion battery and just AAA batteries. AAA batteries. So I can take 2 rechargeable batteries with this one, and I can still have the option to have a backup for my backup with batteries. So in a really bad situation, I will still have light to solve my problems at night. And I also put that in the brain of my pack. And lastly, I just take a regular water bottle with me for easy access. And I would love to have the time to go through fitting the pack with all the weight, but I don't know if we have time for that.
And we don't, but you know what? It would be awesome to have you back potentially and do more another time and have other discussions about this. This is absolutely marvelous. Thank you very much. I do have some questions from the audience. I've answered a crud load of them already in chat, so hopefully people are looking at the chat. But that tent you had, that little tiny tent, is it actually fairly big? Like how much space is there? Are you going to be able to store your stuff in there with you? Lori wants to know.
Depending on what you're planning on bringing. I know some people love to go out with their dogs, and if you're planning to go out with your dog in a 2-person tent, and depending how big your partner is, whoever you're going with, it might be a tight squeeze, but I think you can make it work for that one. The Telos is 4.4 meters square, so 47.5 feet square. It is comfortable, and you can also get one of those nice gear hangers to put your most of the gear up top. It's again the trade-off that you want to make with the weight of your tent. You know, if you want some more room, you can definitely take a 3-person tent, but you have to be willing to carry that extra weight, right?
If we pop by MEC, is that something like, can we see that tent set up? Is that something
Oh,
that?
absolutely.
Okay.
People get weirded out when I try to recommend camping gear, because I try to buy a sleeping pad and they're like, oh, which one do you recommend? And then I pull out these sleeping pads. They're like, oh, okay, so this one. And they're like, I don't know. Open it up, blow it up, lay down.
It's
Uh,
always best to try if you can, right?
Absolutely. And I would even recommend, after trying it in store, go home, spend a night in it, and then if it feels good, great. If it doesn't, come back. We'll try more options until we find the one that is for you.
There's a couple questions quickly on bears. So do you have any recommendation for how you keep the bears out of your equipment, your
Yes,
food out of your tent, obviously?
for sure. So I also take paracord when I go backcountry camping. Depending on where I'm going, I get one of those nice. We sell the bags that are bear proof, that are really nice. So I hang them around with knots, and then I hang them, if I have the option, around the tree. They also sell the plastic bear proof containers as well, that a lot of
That they
people.
like to bat around, yeah.
I I prefer the bag, just because, you know, it can adapt its shape, whereas a plastic container can't. But some people
Yeah.
like that, so they can just like, they have a specific spot where they put that, and that's the way they go about it. I like that I can adapt the shape of that bag. And also, I couldn't get my hands on a sample of bear spray to bring here, just because, you know, they have to be kept away and locked away. But I definitely do recommend taking bear spray.
Yeah,
And
that's a very good point, and it brings up Stephen's point about axe, machete, saw. I'll add on to that ice axe, or your micro spikes. It's really important that you have space in your pack for gear that is needed for that particular adventure. Not every adventure needs every piece of gear, but every adventure needs something, and you need to make sure that you have space in that pack to throw that extra something.
correct. And the only way you're going to know what you're going to need for that specific adventure is when you plan it. So
Yep.
I like to do a run through about what I'm going to do each day. And that's when it comes up, like, oh, but when I'm crossing this pass, am I going to need spikes? Am I going to need something more? I'm going to need ankle support for my footwear. You know, that's how you really get to choose the specific gear for each specific trip.
And the final question, because I think we need to wrap up soon, is going to be from Ginger. And she was talking, you talked about illumination. She's talking about elimination. What do you do by way of taking like biodegradable toilet paper or other things like that? Leave no trace principles.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the big one. A lot of people forget to take toilet paper, and it's not the funnest thing in the world. I've seen for sure things happen. Some people just sacrifice pieces of clothing to put it somewhere somehow, and there there are a few ways you can go on about it. I would recommend doing further research on what would be the one for you. I know we have a book here at MEC that I love, that's called How to Take a Dump in the Woods. They phrase it differently, but that's basically it. So as a climber, what I do is sometimes I hold it with me if I'm doing a big wall. There are ways that you can, go on about your necessities in the woods. The recommendation is that you do it away from your campsite, away from trails,
Away from water sources.
away from water sources. so that you avoid contamination for sure. And then, oh man, I forget the specifics for
I
sure.
highly recommend, I'm going to put a link in the chat
Yeah,
here for the
yeah,
Leave No
definitely
Trace.
do your
Ellen,
research on that.
yeah, and Leave No
It takes a
Trace tells
while.
all about those wonderful things.
It takes a while to get used to it. So, embrace discomfort out in the backcountry.
Marvelous. Sandra.
Thank you, Max. That was great. I love the pace of how you went through that with us. I think that was really helpful for many that might be unaware on what it takes to actually put all those items in there, literally, physically, and see what you did to make that happen. And just to talk about them individually, we've backed it up with some weight distribution posts within the event tonight in the discussion and some great links that Scott put in the chat. I will update the outgoing email that goes to all of you after this evening. It'll come to you within the next 24 hours. I'll make sure that all those links, if you weren't able to grab them tonight, I'll put them in the follow-up email so you have access to the things that Max talked about, some of our resources, and then it will be a collective and you can go through that at your leisure. Before we wrap up and do the draw, I'm curious about all of you. Can we pull up the poll question there? Can you let us know if you've ever done an overnight trip before? Have you ever been on an overnight? Or maybe this is the start of that for you. Yes or no? You're either looking forward to it or you're looking forward to doing it again. And I'm curious, I know a lot of these webinars we offer are the very start of your outdoor education and building those skills. And we're part of that training. We're part of that second T is joining us for these webinars as we go through them season and sport specific and bring in special guests like we did tonight with MEC. So I'll be curious how many out of about 140 of you are left, how many actually have, yes, okay, good. 72% of you and about 28 no. So either way, it's an awesome refresher. I know it was for me. Max, thank you. And then for those of you who have never done it before, this is a great start. Super, super start. MEC has your back. We have your back. And it's just a great way to kind of enjoy what we've got here. We're midway through summer, and a lot of us might have an overnighter ready for the long weekend coming up. Max, thank you. You brought up some awesome tips and tricks and information. And the one thing that caught my mind that I will apply to the skill testing question for the person to win the Cluttersuck pack is this. So everyone's listening closely and got their fingers ready to type in the answers. Scott, you get ready because you got to pick the first one that gives the right answer. We will all know what that is. You talked about water filtration systems. And I really like that because we get a lot of questions about what should we take? Will there be enough water source on the trail? Should we carry any form of filtration? And you mentioned systems that actually filter out bacteria, but not two other things. The first person to answer what those two other things that we mentioned tonight wins this retro, old school, awesome MEC pack. Scott, you can tell me when that
We
person's
already
typed.
have a winner.
Okay, awesome.
They're coming in so fast that I can't even get to it, but we had a winner within a second. It was awesome.
Wonderful. So we know that it's viruses and chemicals. And that's really helpful information because unless we had this time to chat with you, Max, tonight, and for Scott to include some information too, maybe some people were unaware of that really important piece of information, really key. So email us, connect with us, DM us, however you can get a hold of us on social. I will get back to you with information on how we can ship that prize to you. So
It's
as we
Carrie,
wrap up our session,
Carrie Miller. Yes.
Congratulations, Carrie Miller. That's awesome. And I saw that there was quite a few people that have joined us from all over. You've got some BCers, of course, Alberta, Saskatchewan, New Brunswick. That's great. It's great to see the expanse there. So just wanted to share that with you as well, Max. Max, thank you. We'd welcome you back anytime. We appreciate MEC's support. And again, we'll wrap all this up in the follow-up email with the QR code for FatMap with the 10% discount from MEC. I'll get in touch with you for the winning prize for the backpack and all the extra links that we have for you. And as I wrap up, I just want to say I hope you're able to join us. We've got 2 more left in our summer series. We've got on August 4th, we have Coquitlam Search and Rescue joining us. They're celebrating their 50th. You are, Scott, celebrating your 50th anniversary for Coquitlam SAR. That's a big big celebration. We've got Wendy Harder, one of your fellow members there, joining us. Can't wait to have Wendy on and give us that SAR perspective from her lens, from your lens. And then on August 9th, it'll be our last one of our summer series, and we've got BC Wildfire coming on. Brett Soderholm's going to join us and talk to us all about safety preparation, wildfire decision making, route finding, trip plan. It's going to be great, all around fires and safety for outdoor and weather as well. Beautiful. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Max. Thank you to all the participants, and everyone will get a recording. Enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of your summer. Take care.
Good night, folks. Thanks, Max.
Yeah.
Good night.